For 15 years, Officer Derek Simmons enforced his own brutal version of justice in the city's black neighborhoods. His record, 14 excessive force complaints, 0 consequences, until he pulled over Jamal Washington for a broken taillight. The assault was vicious and methodical. Jamal's ribs cracked under Simmons's baton while his partner watched impassively. When Jamal sought justice, the department closed ranks around their own. Then Prosecutor Marcus Brooks stepped into the courtroom. What Simmons couldn't stomach, a black lawyer systematically exposing his lies with surgical precision. When Simmons pulled a hidden gun in open court, his rage wasn't just about losing a case. It was about losing to a black man who dared to hold him accountable. But his desperate act would only accelerate his downfall, unleashing an investigation that would expose not just one corrupt officer, but an entire system built to protect him. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The Montgomery County Courthouse hummed with tension, a pressure cooker of conflicting loyalties sealed beneath its neoclassical dome. Marcus Brooks adjusted his navy tie, feeling the weight of every eye in the gallery as he arranged his documents at the prosecution table. To his right, Jamal Washington sat with rigid posture, the fading bruises on his face a testament to what had brought them all here. "You sure you're ready for this?" Marcus asked quietly, his voice carrying just far enough for his client to hear. Jamal's gaze remained fixed on Officer Derek Simmons at the defense table. "Been ready since the day it happened." Marcus nodded, understanding the courage it took for a young black man to testify against a police officer in this city. He'd seen too many similar cases collapse under the blue wall of silence and community pressure. Across the aisle, Derek Simmons projected confidence in his dress uniform, brass buttons gleaming under the fluorescent lights. But Marcus noted the officer's tapping foot, the periodic clenching of his jaw. Classic tells of a man pretending to be calmer than he was. "All rise," the bailiff called, as Judge Patricia Montgomery entered, her expression giving nothing away. Once seated, Marcus surveyed the gallery. One side filled with uniforms, a sea of blue standing in solidarity with Simmons. The other held community members, activists, and Jamal's family. Between them sat reporters, pens poised to record every word. "The state calls Officer Michael Tanaka," Marcus announced once preliminaries concluded. Officer Tanaka approached the stand, discomfort evident in his hesitant steps. As Derek's patrol partner, his testimony would be crucial. "Officer Tanaka, please describe what you witnessed on the evening of March 12th. Tanaka cleared his throat. "We performed a traffic stop on Mr. Washington's vehicle for a broken taillight." "And what happened next?" "The defendant, Officer Simmons, approached the driver's side while I took the passenger's side." "Did Mr. Washington resist or threaten either of you at any point?" Tanaka's eyes flickered toward Derek. "No, sir." "Yet Officer Simmons forcibly removed Mr. Washington from the vehicle, correct?" "Yes." Marcus displayed a still image from Tanaka's body camera on the courtroom monitor. "Is this Mr. Washington complying with Officer Simmons's instructions to provide his license and registration?" "Yes, it appears so." Marcus advanced the footage frame by frame, showing Jamal's repeated compliance, followed by Simmons's escalating aggression. "Officer Tanaka, what training have you received regarding appropriate use of force during routine traffic stops?" As Tanaka detailed department protocols, Marcus observed Derek's expression darkening. The defendant leaned toward his attorney, whispering something that made the lawyer place a cautioning hand on his arm. Judge Montgomery's voice cut through Marcus's thoughts. "Let's take a 15-minute recess before the prosecution continues." In the hallway, ADA Sophia Chen approached Marcus with a coffee. "You've got Simmons sweating already," she murmured. "His partner's testimony is just the beginning." Wait until the medical examiner walks them through Jamal's injuries. Sophia's expression turned serious. Be careful with this one, Marcus. There's something off about Simmons. The way he watches you. I've noticed, Marcus replied, remembering the cold hatred in the officer's eyes. When court resumed, Marcus presented Dr. Lowell, who clinically described Jamal's injuries: 3 broken ribs, a fractured orbital bone, severe contusions across his back and shoulders. These injuries, Dr. Lowell explained, pointing to magnified photographs, are consistent with repeated strikes from a baton or similar object, delivered with significant force. From the gallery came a soft sob, Jamal's mother pressing a handkerchief to her mouth. Marcus approached the jury box. The evidence will show that Officer Simmons didn't just cross a line that night, he obliterated it. This isn't about a split-second decision in a dangerous situation. This is about an officer who chose, repeatedly, to brutalize a compliant citizen. He gestured toward Jamal. Mr. Washington had no weapon. He posed no threat. His only crime, the only reason he caught Officer Simmons's attention, was the color of his skin. From the defense table came a sound, half scoff, half growl. Marcus turned to see Derek Simmons staring at him with undisguised contempt. The prosecution will prove that Officer Simmons has a documented history of using excessive force, particularly against people of color. This wasn't an isolated incident or a momentary lapse in judgment. It was the predictable action of an officer who views certain citizens as inherently suspect, inherently criminal, and inherently deserving of brutality. Marcus met Derek's glare directly. This trial isn't just about what happened to Jamal Washington. It's about whether we, as a community, will continue to allow those sworn to protect us to act as if they're above the very laws they enforce. The defense attorney rose to object, but Judge Montgomery waved him down. Save it for your opening statement, counselor. As Marcus returned to his seat, he felt the temperature in the courtroom rise a few degrees. The battle lines were drawn. In the weeks ahead, he would either bring a corrupt officer to justice or watch another case of police brutality disappear into the system's cracks. What neither he nor anyone else in that courtroom could know was that this trial would end in gunfire, a desperate manhunt, and a final confrontation that would expose years of institutional corruption. All because one man refused to be held accountable for his actions. 3 days into the trial, Marcus leaned against his kitchen counter, reviewing his notes for cross-examination while his coffee cooled. His phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Channel 7 coverage just went national. Pressure's building. He flipped on the television to see footage of protesters outside the courthouse, their signs demanding justice for Jamal and end police brutality. The anchor's voice carried a practiced neutrality. As Officer Simmons's trial continues, community tensions are escalating, with police union representatives claiming the prosecution is politically motivated. Marcus silenced the TV, knowing the media circus would only intensify. What mattered was the courtroom, where evidence spoke louder than opinions. 2 hours later, as Marcus organized exhibits for the day's testimony, Judge Montgomery addressed the packed gallery. I'll remind everyone that outbursts will not be tolerated. This is a court of law, not a public forum. The morning proceeded with technical testimony about body camera footage. During the lunch recess, Marcus found Jamal sitting alone in a conference room, staring at nothing. You're testifying after lunch, Marcus said gently. How are you holding up? Jamal's laugh held no humor. Everyone keeps asking me that, like there's a right answer. There isn't, Marcus acknowledged, taking a seat. But there's an honest one. Honestly? Jamal's voice tightened. I'm terrified, not just of testifying, of what happens after. Win or lose, I still have to live in this city. Still have to worry every time I see a patrol car. Marcus nodded, understanding the reality beyond legal victories. I can't promise this changes everything, but it's a start. You really believe that? Jamal searched Marcus's face for reassurance. I have to, Marcus replied. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? When court resumed, Jamal took the stand, his formal shirt and tie a stark contrast to his usual casual attire. Marcus guided him through the events of March 12th with practiced precision. I handed him my license and registration right away, Jamal recounted. He said I was being suspiciously cooperative. What happened next? He ordered me out of the car. When I asked why, he reached in, unbuckled my seatbelt, and dragged me out by my arm. Did he tell you why you were being removed from the vehicle? No, sir. He said, you'll find out soon enough. As Jamal described the escalating violence, being thrown against the car, forced to the ground, struck repeatedly with the baton, his voice remained steady, but his hands gripped the witness stand until his knuckles paled. I kept saying, I'm not resisting, Jamal continued. He just hit me harder and said, you people always resist. Marcus let the phrase hang in the air. You people? Yes, sir. Did you understand what he meant by that? Objection. The defense attorney stood. Calls for speculation. Sustained, Judge Montgomery ruled. Across the room, Derek Simmons maintained a mask of professional indignation, but beneath the table, his leg bounced with growing agitation. After Jamal's testimony, the defense began their cross-examination, attempting to paint him as combative and non-compliant. Marcus objected repeatedly as the questioning bordered on harassment. Your Honor, Marcus interjected, after a particularly aggressive line of questioning, defense counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Watch your tone, counselor. When Jamal finally stepped down, visibly exhausted, Marcus squeezed his shoulder. You did well. The day's final witness was Captain Laura Reeves, Derek's supervisor, subpoenaed by the prosecution. As she took the stand, her discomfort was palpable. She avoided looking at Derek directly. Captain Reeves, how many citizen complaints has Officer Simmons received during his tenure? She hesitated. 14. And how many resulted in disciplinary action? 2. Just 2? Marcus feigned surprise. Even though 4 complainants required medical attention? Her gaze dropped to her hands. The internal review didn't find sufficient cause for discipline in those cases. Marcus presented a document. This is your memo from last year recommending Officer Simmons for additional training in de-escalation techniques, correct? Yes. You wrote, and I quote, Officer Simmons demonstrates a concerning pattern of escalation, particularly during interactions with minority citizens. Do you stand by that assessment? Captain Reeves glanced toward Derek, who stared back with undisguised betrayal. Yes, I do. Was Officer Simmons required to complete this training? No. There were budgetary constraints. From the defense table, Derek's attorney tried to intersect. Objection. Relevance. Overruled, Judge Montgomery responded. The witness will answer. As the day's proceedings concluded, Marcus caught Derek glaring at Captain Reeves with such intensity that court officers positioned themselves between them as they exited. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Marcus offered only a brief statement. We believe the evidence speaks for itself. Later that evening, as Marcus reviewed materials for the next day, his phone rang with an unlisted number. Brooks, he answered. You're making a mistake. The voice was male, deliberately disguised. Marcus had received enough threats in high-profile cases to recognize one. Who is this? Simmons is protected. You're not. Back off while you can. The line went dead. Marcus immediately reported the call to court security, but he knew such threats rarely led to actionable information. Across town, Derek Simmons sat in his apartment, surrounded by newspaper clippings about the case. The television replayed footage of Marcus's confident stride into the courthouse, of Jamal's family holding hands in prayer. Derek's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stand strong. Some of us still know what it means to be real police." He tossed the phone aside, draining his third whiskey of the night. The betrayal stung worse than the prosecution. Captain Reeves had been his mentor, had taught him everything about working the streets. Now she'd thrown him to the wolves to save her own career. Derek stared at his service photo hanging on the wall. The uniform, the badge, the pride he'd once felt. 15 years enforcing the line between order and chaos, between the decent citizens and the dangerous ones. Now they painted him as a monster for doing what the job required. Tomorrow he'd have to sit through more testimony, more accusations, and soon he'd face Marcus Brooks's cross-examination. The thought twisted his stomach. He'd seen how Brooks dismantled witnesses, how he found weaknesses and exploited them mercilessly. Derek reached for the whiskey bottle again, his hand trembling slightly. He wasn't afraid of prison, he told himself. He was afraid of being erased. His service, his sacrifices, everything that defined him stripped away by a lawyer who'd never had to make a life-or-death decision in seconds. He refilled his glass, unaware that in a few days he would make a decision that would transform a trial into a national crisis, and that nothing would ever be the same again. Development 2. The morning Derek Simmons would take the stand, the courthouse security doubled. Officers lined the walls, tensions simmering beneath professional facades. Marcus arrived early, methodically arranging evidence files in order of planned presentation. When Sophia entered, she placed a coffee beside his notes. "You ready?" she asked. "Word is Simmons spent the weekend practicing with the best defense coach they could find." Marcus nodded. "Let him practice. Rehearsed lies fall apart faster than spontaneous ones." The gallery filled to capacity. Journalists, officers, community members, and Jamal's family all secured seats for what everyone anticipated would be the trial's pivotal moment. Jamal entered with his mother, who gripped his hand with protective intensity. Judge Montgomery surveyed the crowded room. "I'll remind everyone that any disruptions will result in immediate removal. Proceed." "The defense calls Officer Derek Simmons to the stand," announced his attorney. Derek approached with military posture, his uniform immaculate, medals gleaming. After being sworn in, he settled into the witness chair with practiced confidence. For the first hour, Derek's testimony proceeded smoothly under his attorney's guidance. He described his 15 years of service, including commendations and his work in high-crime areas. He portrayed the traffic stop as routine until Jamal became combative and non-compliant. "I observed him reaching toward the center console," Derek stated. "Based on my training and experience, I believed he might be reaching for a weapon." "And this prompted your decision to remove him from the vehicle?" "Yes, sir. The safety of my partner and myself was my primary concern." "Did you use excessive force, Officer Simmons?" Derek's expression turned solemn. "I used the force necessary to secure a potentially dangerous suspect. If Mr. Washington had complied immediately, the situation would never have escalated." Throughout the testimony, Marcus made notes, occasionally glancing toward Jamal, whose face remained impassive despite the lies being told about him. "No further questions," concluded the defense attorney, looking satisfied. Judge Montgomery turned to Marcus. "Your witness, Mr. Brooks." Marcus approached unhurriedly, carrying nothing but a single folder. "Officer Simmons, you testified that Mr. Washington was reaching toward his center console, correct?" "That's right." "Let's review Officer Tanaka's body camera footage." Marcus signaled, and the courtroom screens displayed the video. "Can you point out where Mr. Washington reaches toward the console?" Derek shifted. "The angle doesn't show it clearly. Actually, The angle shows the entire passenger compartment. There is no movement toward the console. Marcus advanced the footage frame by frame. What we do see is Mr. Washington holding his license and registration, hands visible at all times. My perspective from the driver's side was different. Your body camera should have captured that perspective. But strangely, yours malfunctioned that evening. Derek's jaw tightened. Equipment failures happen. They seem to happen to you with remarkable frequency during incidents that result in complaints. Marcus introduced another exhibit. 5 malfunctions in 3 years, all during arrests involving excessive force allegations. "Objection," the defense attorney called. "Counsel is testifying." "I'm referencing evidence already admitted, Your Honor," Marcus countered. "Overruled." "The witness will answer." Derek's voice hardened. "Correlation isn't causation, counselor." "Indeed," Marcus replied. "Let's discuss causation then. You stated Mr. Washington was combative, yet the footage shows him repeatedly saying, 'I'm not resisting,' while you struck him. What specifically did you interpret as combative behavior? Body language, tone, things cameras don't capture, things no one else witnessed?" Marcus pressed. Officer Tanaka testified he observed no resistance. Tanaka was at the passenger side. His view was obstructed. Marcus approached closer. "Officer Simmons, during the arrest, you were recorded saying, and I quote, 'You people always resist.' What did you mean by 'you people'?" A muscle twitched in Derek's cheek. "I meant suspects who—" "Isn't it true," Marcus interrupted, "that you've used this exact phrase during other arrests, specifically with black suspects?" "I don't recall specific phrases used during high-stress situations." Marcus presented another document. "This is a transcript from your body camera during an arrest last year. You used identical language with another black motorist who filed a complaint." Derek's knuckles whitened against the witness stand. Those situations were similar. The resistance was similar. The only similarity was the race of the individuals involved. Marcus countered, his voice level but relentless. "In fact, your record shows a disturbing pattern. While 22% of traffic stops in your district involve black drivers, they account for 78% of your use of force incidents." "Objection!" the defense attorney shouted. "These statistics lack context." "Your Honor," Marcus replied, "these are the department's own statistics, submitted during discovery." Overruled. Derek's breathing quickened visibly. Marcus noted the warning sign but pressed forward. "Officer Simmons, Captain Reeves testified that she recommended you for additional training in de-escalation techniques. Why wasn't that training completed?" "You'd have to ask administration about budget priorities," Derek replied tightly. "I'm asking you. Did you ever express reluctance about taking this training?" "I didn't see it as necessary." "Because you don't believe you have an issue with excessive force?" "I don't." Marcus introduced another exhibit. "This is your performance review from 2 years ago." Captain Reeves noted, "Officer Simmons demonstrates concerning ideological rigidity and resistance to community-oriented policing initiatives." Derek's face flushed. Captain Reeves was under political pressure to appear progressive. "So your direct supervisor was lying in an official document?" "She was exaggerating to please her superiors." Marcus changed direction suddenly. "You were previously assigned to the Central Tactical Task Force, correct?" "Yes." "A unit that was disbanded following a Justice Department investigation?" "For political reasons," Derek snapped, his composure fracturing. "The report cited systematic civil rights violations and excessive force against minority communities. Were those political reasons?" Derek leaned forward. "You have no idea what it takes to police those neighborhoods. You sit in your office while we're out there dealing with—" "With what, Officer Simmons?" Marcus interrupted. "With those people?" The courtroom fell silent as Derek's face contorted with barely contained rage. Judge Montgomery interjected. The witness will confine his answers to the questions asked. Marcus pushed further. Officer Simmons, did you target Jamal Washington because of his race? No. Did you use excessive force because you believed, as your pattern demonstrates, that black suspects automatically require physical subjugation? That's ridiculous. Derek's voice rose. Is it ridiculous to suggest that your actions that night were not those of a professional police officer, but those of someone acting on deeply held racial prejudice? Derek half rose from his seat. You're twisting everything. I'm presenting facts, officer. Facts documented in your own record. You people want to handcuff us, then complain when neighborhoods go to hell, Derek shouted. You have no idea what we face every day. The animals we have to— The word hung in the air. Marcus simply stared at Derek, allowing the implication to resonate through the stunned courtroom. Animals, Marcus repeated quietly. Is that how you view the citizens you're sworn to protect? Derek's eyes darted wildly, panic replacing anger, as he realized his mistake. Before anyone could react, his hand moved to his ankle, pulling a small pistol from a concealed holster. Enough! He shouted, aiming the weapon directly at Jamal. I'm not going to sit here and be crucified. Chaos erupted. People screamed, diving under benches. Security officers drew their weapons, but Derek had already moved from the witness stand, backing toward the nearest exit while keeping the gun trained on Jamal. Stay back! Derek yelled. Everyone stay back! Marcus stood frozen, positioned between Derek and Jamal, unwilling to move aside. This is what happens, Derek snarled, sweat beading on his forehead. This is what happens when you push good cops too far. When you side with criminals instead of the people keeping you safe. A bailiff moved toward Derek, who swung the gun in his direction. Back off! I'll shoot! In one fluid motion, Derek grabbed the bailiff, positioning him as a human shield. Everyone stay where you are. I'm walking out of here, and no one's going to stop me. Derek fired a shot toward the ceiling, triggering more screams and sending plaster raining down. In the confusion, he backed through a side door leading to the secured hallway, dragging the struggling bailiff with him. Marcus rushed to Jamal, pulling him behind the heavy wooden table as additional shots echoed from the hallway. Court officers converged on the door Derek had used, while others evacuated the gallery. Outside, sirens wailed as the courthouse went into lockdown. Inside, Marcus held a shaking Jamal, whose only words came as a whispered question. Did he miss on purpose, or was he just a bad shot? Within minutes, the news spread across the city. Officer Derek Simmons, on trial for assault, had escaped custody, armed and dangerous. The manhunt had begun. The Emergency Operations Center at police headquarters had transformed into a war room within 30 minutes of Derek's escape. Chief Raymond Wilson stood before a wall of monitors displaying courthouse security footage, news coverage, and a digital map of the city with search zones highlighted. I want every available unit on this, Wilson ordered, his usually polished demeanor fraying at the edges. Highway checkpoints, transit stations, everything. Simmons knows our protocols, which means we need to be unpredictable. Captain Laura Reeves watched from the periphery, her stomach churning with guilt and fear. She should have seen this coming. The signs were there. Derek's increasing paranoia, his sense of persecution, his whispered comments about having contingencies. Captain Reeves, Chief Wilson called, pulling her back to the present. You know Simmons better than anyone. Where would he go? All eyes turned to her. He's not stupid enough to go home or to family, she said carefully, but he has connections from the old task force days. Names, Wilson demanded. Before she could answer, her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. We're taking care of our own. Stay out of it. Laura slipped the phone into her pocket without responding, her decision already made. I'll compile a list, she told the chief, knowing she would provide some names while omitting others. Self-preservation had become instinct after years in the department. Across town, Marcus sat with Jamal in a secure conference room at the district attorney's office. 2 officers stood guard outside. Sophia entered with coffee and updates. They found the bailiff handcuffed to a pipe in the courthouse basement, she reported. Shaken, but otherwise unharmed. Simmons took his weapon and radio. So now he has 2 guns, Marcus observed grimly, and police communications capability. Sophia lowered her voice. The DA wants to put you both in protective custody. Simmons made it pretty clear you were targets. Jamal, who had been silent since the courtroom, finally spoke. For how long? Until they catch him, Sophia replied. And if they don't? Jamal's laugh was hollow. I'm supposed to live in hiding because the system put a racist with a badge and now can't control him? Marcus placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. We'll figure this out. For now, let's make sure you're safe. My mom? Jamal said suddenly. He knows where we live. My family? Already being secured, Marcus assured him. Protection details are being assigned to everyone connected to the case. Jamal nodded, but his eyes held no relief. This is exactly what I was afraid of, you know. That somehow, no matter what, he'd still have power over my life. The door opened as District Attorney Eleanor Grant entered, her expression severe. Marcus, I need a word. In the hallway, she didn't waste time. The mayor's office is in panic mode. They're already positioning this as a lone wolf incident, not a systemic failure. That's exactly what it is. Systemic, Marcus countered. Simmons should never have had a weapon in that courtroom. Security failed, supervision failed, the psych evaluations failed. I agree, Eleanor said. But politically? I don't care about politically, Marcus interrupted. I care about the fact that a violent armed officer is on the loose after publicly threatening a victim and a prosecutor. Eleanor lowered her voice. There's something else. The chief judge called. She's authorizing emergency access to sealed records relating to the Central Tactical Task Force. Marcus's interest sharpened. Simmons's old unit? Yes. Those records were sealed as part of a settlement agreement with the city 3 years ago. Nobody's seen them since. Not even our office. What's in them? That's what you're going to find out. She handed him a court order. Judge Watkins believes there may be information relevant to Simmons's current state of mind, and potentially where he might go. Marcus studied the document. This is unprecedented. So is an officer pulling a gun in open court. Eleanor's voice hardened. Find what we need to bring him in, or this city's about to become a powder keg. 10 miles away, Derek Simmons crouched in the back seat of a sedan as it passed through a police checkpoint. The driver, Officer Jack Mercer, maintained a casual expression as he displayed his badge. Any sign of him? Mercer asked the checkpoint officer. Nothing yet, came the reply. Keep your eyes open. Will do. Once clear, Mercer drove for another 20 minutes, taking a circuitous route to an aging ranch house on the city's outskirts. He parked behind the structure, out of sight from the road. We're here, he announced. Coast is clear. Derek emerged, his uniform replaced with civilian clothes, a baseball cap pulled low over his face. Mercer led him into the house where 2 other men waited, both former members of the disbanded Central Tactical Task Force. Jesus, Simmons, said Mike Kowalski, a burly ex-officer who'd retired after the task force dissolution. You really stepped in it this time. They gave me no choice, Derek replied, his voice hard. That prosecutor was out for blood. The third man, Ray Donovan, handed Derek a beer. Media's having a field day. Your headline news everywhere. Derek collapsed into a worn armchair, suddenly exhausted. What are they saying? What do you think? Kowalski gestured to the television. Crazed cop goes berserk. race angle front and center. On screen, footage showed the courthouse evacuation, followed by an interview with a witness describing Derek's courtroom outburst. They're calling it a racially motivated attack, the newscaster explained. Sources say Officer Simmons specifically targeted the victim of his alleged assault after making racial slurs during cross-examination. Derek hurled his beer bottle at the television. "That's a lie!" "I wasn't targeting anyone. I just needed to get out of there." Donovan muted the TV. "Doesn't matter what happened anymore. Matters what they say happened." "They've already got roadblocks up," Mercer reported. "Citywide search. Chief Wilson's authorized maximum resources." "Wilson!" Derek spat the name. "Another politician with a badge who'll throw any real cop under the bus to save his career." Kowalski exchanged glances with the others. "Derek, what's your plan here? You can't stay on the run forever." "I just need time to think," Derek muttered, rubbing his temples, "to figure out who I can trust." On the muted television, the image changed to Marcus Brooks at a press conference, his expression resolute as he spoke alongside the district attorney. Derek's eyes narrowed. "That man destroyed 15 years of service in one afternoon. Made me out to be some kind of monster." "The lawyer's just doing his job," Donovan said cautiously. "No." Derek's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "He's trying to destroy the whole system, making it impossible for cops to do their jobs, and he's using me as his example." The room fell silent. Finally, Mercer spoke. "What are you thinking, Derek?" "I'm thinking it's time someone stood up for what's right." Derek pulled out the bailiff's confiscated gun, checking it methodically. "Before there are no real cops left." At the district attorney's office, Marcus stared at his computer screen in disbelief. The sealed files on the Central Tactical Task Force contained far more than anyone had anticipated. Hundreds of excessive force complaints systematically buried, evidence tampering, coordinated testimony to protect unit members. And at the center of much of it, Derek Simmons. "My God," Marcus whispered, opening another document labeled Operation Clean Sweep. Sophia peered over his shoulder. "What is it?" "It's a playbook," Marcus said. "A literal playbook for covering up misconduct. Look, standard practices for disabling body cameras, consistent language for reports to justify force, even scripts for testimony." Sophia's expression darkened as she read. This wasn't just bad officers. This was institutional. And Simmons was one of their star players. Marcus opened another file. "Look at these performance evaluations. He was commended for maintaining control of high-crime sectors and aggressive pursuit of quality-of-life enforcement. Coded language," Sophia noted. "But here's what's really interesting," Marcus continued, pointing to a signature block. "Who signed off on all these glowing reviews?" Sophia leaned closer. "Captain Laura Reeves. The same Captain Reeves who testified against him." Marcus sat back, pieces falling into place. "The same Captain Reeves who suddenly developed concerns about his behavior after the task force was disbanded. She's covering herself," Sophia realized. "And she knows more than she's telling." Marcus reached for his phone. "We need to talk to her. Now." As night fell over the city, news helicopters circled, searchlights swept through neighborhoods, and citizens locked their doors against the threat of a rogue officer. What had begun as a trial was evolving into something far larger, an unraveling that would expose not just one man's prejudice, but a system built to protect it. Dawn broke over the city as Marcus paced his makeshift war room at the DA's office. Evidence boxes from the sealed task force files surrounded him, their contents spread across tables, whiteboards covered with names, dates, and connections. Sophia entered with coffee and concern etched on her face. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked. "Couldn't," Marcus replied, accepting the cup gratefully. "Not with what's in these files." He gestured to a photo board displaying 18 officers, the complete Central Tactical Task Force at its peak. Red X's marked 4 faces, including Derek Simmons. These 4 were directly implicated in at least 20 excessive force complaints. All buried. Marcus tapped another 8 photos. These officers provided cover or false testimony. And the others? Administrative. Primarily handled paperwork, ensuring reports were properly formatted before submission. So the entire unit was corrupt. The entire unit was designed to be corrupt, Marcus corrected. That's what makes this different. This wasn't bad apples. The barrel itself was rotten. District Attorney Eleanor Grant pushed through the door, immaculately dressed despite the early hour. Tell me you have something we can use to find Simmons. I have something bigger, Marcus replied. A conspiracy that goes all the way up to the former chief of police. Eleanor's expression hardened. Marcus, I asked for Simmons's location, not an institutional critique. They're connected, Marcus insisted. Look at these property records. The task force maintained 3 processing sites, off-the-books locations for interrogations that wouldn't hold up in court. Black sites, Sophia translated. Exactly. And they're not on any official inventory. One was supposedly decommissioned, but the utilities are still active, paid through a shell account. Eleanor examined the address. You think Simmons is hiding there? Or someone hiding him knows about it? These sites were the task force's most closely guarded secret. Only insiders would know about them. Eleanor grabbed her phone. I'll dispatch tactical units. Wait, Marcus interrupted. If we raid all 3 simultaneously, we lose our advantage. The task force had signals, ways of warning each other. We need to be smarter. What do you suggest? Let me work with Captain Reeves. She was their administrative head. She knows how they communicated, how they operated. Eleanor hesitated. Reeves is already under internal investigation for her testimony. She may not be reliable. She's scared, Marcus countered. That makes her useful. She knows the department can't protect her from what's in these files. Her best option is full cooperation. Fine, Eleanor conceded, but I want regular updates. If Simmons isn't found in the next 24 hours, I'll have no choice but to involve federal agencies. After she left, Sophia voiced what they both feared. If the feds step in, controlling the narrative becomes impossible. Everything we've found could be buried all over again. Then let's make sure they find him before that happens. Marcus gathered key documents. Call Captain Reeves. Tell her to meet us at the Howard Street coffee shop. Not here, not the police station. You don't trust her coming to official locations? I don't trust anyone right now, Marcus admitted, and after what I've read, neither should you. Across town, Derek Simmons paced the small bedroom of the safe house, sleep-deprived and increasingly agitated. The television droned continuously, his only window to the outside world, and the massive manhunt underway. Police sources confirm Officer Simmons may have received assistance in his escape, the news anchor reported. Internal Affairs is investigating possible accomplices within the department. They're closing in, Derek muttered, pulling back the curtain slightly to scan the quiet street. Ray Donovan entered with a burner phone. Got a message from Mercer. They're setting up search parameters using your known locations. Your apartment, gym, usual haunts. They won't find me here, Derek stated, though his confidence was weakening. That's not all, Donovan continued. The sealed task force files have been opened. That prosecutor, Brooks, he's going through everything. Derek froze. What? Emergency court order. They're using it to establish patterns, predict where you might go. It's not about finding me, Derek snarled, slamming his fist against the wall. It's about destroying everything we built, everything we protected. Donovan shifted uncomfortably. Derek, I need to be straight with you. Kowalski's getting nervous. Says this has gone too far, that maybe you should turn yourself in. Turn myself in? Derek laughed bitterly. So Brooks can make an example of me? So they can parade me around as the poster boy for police racism? It's better than dying in some standoff, which is where this is headed if you keep going. Derek turned back to the television, which now showed footage from outside the courthouse. The camera focused on Marcus Brooks, escorting Jamal Washington through a media gauntlet. "Mr. Brooks," a reporter called, "do you believe Officer Simmons specifically targeted Mr. Washington in the courtroom?" Marcus's response was measured. "Officer Simmons's actions speak for themselves. What began as a case about excessive force has evolved into something much larger, evidence of systematic misconduct that was knowingly concealed from the public." Derek's expression darkened as Marcus continued. "The sealed files we've accessed reveal disturbing patterns in the now disbanded Central Tactical Task Force. This isn't about one officer. It's about accountability at every level of a system that protected abusive behavior." "He's going after everyone," Derek whispered, his paranoia crystallizing into purpose. "This was never about justice. It's about tearing down the entire department." Donovan recognized the dangerous shift in Derek's demeanor. "What are you planning?" "Nothing yet," Derek lied. "Just thinking." But his mind was already racing, calculating how to strike back directly at the man who had become, in his distorted view, the true threat. At the Howard Street coffee shop, Marcus sat in a corner booth, positioned to observe all entrances. Captain Laura Reeves arrived precisely on time. Her civilian clothes and lack of insignia, a deliberate attempt at anonymity. "Thank you for meeting me," Marcus began once she was seated. "I don't have much choice, do I?" she replied, her voice tight. "Not with what you've found." Marcus placed a folder on the table. "Operation Clean Sweep. Your signature appears 87 times in these documents, Captain." She flinched. "That was a different time." "Different how?" "The department was under pressure to reduce crime statistics. The task force delivered results." "By violating civil rights," Marcus countered. "By covering up brutality." Laura's composure cracked. "You don't understand the pressures, the expectations. Do you know what happens to commanders who don't deliver the numbers the politicians want?" "I understand choices, Captain." "And you made yours." Marcus leaned forward. "But right now, I'm more concerned with finding Derek Simmons before he hurts someone else. I've already told the chief everything I know about his possible locations." "Have you?" Marcus challenged. "The task force maintained 3 unofficial processing sites, locations absent from official records but present in these files. Did you share those with the chief?" Laura's silence was answer enough. "Derek knows about them," Marcus continued, "and so do his former colleagues, the ones who are almost certainly helping him now." "If I help you," Laura said carefully, "what happens to me when this is over?" "That depends on how valuable your help is." Marcus held her gaze. "Starting with the names of officers still on the force who were loyal to the task force, officers who might be sheltering Derek." Laura took a deep breath. "Jack Mercer. Traffic Division. He and Derek went through the academy together. Ray Donovan, retired last year but still connected. Mike Kowalski, also retired. Addresses? Mercer lives downtown. Donovan has a hunting cabin upstate. Kowalski?" She hesitated. "His mother owned a property on the east side. He took it over when she died." Marcus made notes. "The processing sites. Which one would Derek most likely use?" "The warehouse on Palmer Street. It was their favorite. Isolated. Multiple exit points." As she provided details, Sophia quietly relayed the information to the DA's office. Teams were already being assembled. Search warrants expedited. "There's something else you should know," Laura added, her voice dropping. "Derek kept insurance. Documentation of operations that came from higher up. Things that would implicate former Chief Miller and others." "What kind of documentation?" "Written orders for questionable operations. Recordings of meetings where explicit instructions were given to violate procedures. She looked away. He called it his retirement plan, protection in case anyone ever came after him. Marcus understood immediately. That's why he's still free. He's not just running from prosecution, he's leveraging that information for help. People with a lot to lose will go to great lengths to keep their secrets buried, Laura confirmed. As they concluded their meeting, Marcus felt the weight of what they were truly confronting. Not just one dangerous officer, but a network of corruption that had tentacles throughout the department's history. Finding Derek wasn't simply about ending a manhunt. It was about determining which version of justice would prevail. Jamal Washington stared at his face on the television screen, barely recognizing himself in the somber, composed figure delivering a statement on the courthouse steps. 3 days into the manhunt, he'd become more than a victim. He was now a symbol, a reluctant spokesperson thrust into a national conversation about policing and race. "I never asked for any of this," he told Marcus, as they sat in the safe house living room, 2 security officers stationed outside. "All I wanted was for one cop to be held accountable for what he did to me." "I know," Marcus replied. "Sometimes cases become larger than the individuals involved." Jamal gestured to the stack of interview requests on the coffee table. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Everyone wants the traumatized black victim to cry on camera. You don't have to do any of them. "Don't I, though?" Jamal's voice hardened. "If I disappear, the story becomes all about Simmons, the troubled officer pushed too far. My silence lets them control the narrative." Marcus studied the young man, impressed by his insight, despite the pressure he was under. "What do you want to do?" "I want to speak," Jamal decided, "but on my terms. Not as a victim, but as someone demanding accountability." He paused, vulnerability breaking through his resolve. "But I'm scared, Marcus. Simmons is still out there. What if speaking publicly makes me more of a target?" "That's a legitimate concern," Marcus acknowledged, "but you'd have security, and staying visible actually provides a certain protection. Harming you would only amplify everything Simmons is trying to silence." Jamal considered this. "My mom thinks I should just let it go. Move somewhere else. Start over. Is that what you want?" "No." The answer came quickly, surprising even Jamal. "Running feels like letting him win, like saying he was right to treat me like I didn't belong in my own neighborhood, my own city." Marcus nodded, understanding the complex calculus of principle versus self-preservation. "Whatever you decide, I'll support it." "I'll do one interview," Jamal decided. "The local station, Channel 6. They've been fair so far." As they discussed logistics, Marcus's phone rang. Sophia with updates. "We've got movement," she reported. "Jack Mercer just turned himself in, asking for immunity in exchange for information on Simmons." "What triggered that?" Marcus asked. "Pressure from the investigation. Once we identified him from Reeves's information, we put surveillance on him. He must have spotted it and panicked." "I'm on my way," Marcus told her, then explained the situation to Jamal. "Go," Jamal urged. "Finding Simmons is what matters most right now." Across town, in the interview room at police headquarters, Jack Mercer sat with his union attorney, looking exhausted and frightened. Marcus entered alongside District Attorney Grant and Chief Wilson. "Officer Mercer," Eleanor began, "you understand that any immunity agreement depends on the value and verifiability of your information." "I understand," Mercer replied, his voice subdued. "I want to be clear. I helped Derek immediately after the courthouse incident because he was my friend. I didn't know what he was planning." Marcus leaned forward. "Where is he now?" "A house on Lakewood Drive. Mike Kowalski's mother's old place." Mercer glanced at his attorney, who nodded encouragement. "But he's not staying there much longer. He knows it's not secure." "How do you know that?" "Because I talked to him yesterday." He's becoming unstable, paranoid, talking about making statements and showing everyone what happens when good cops get pushed too far. Chief Wilson interjected, "Did he specify any targets?" Mercer hesitated. "He's fixated on two people, Washington and him." He nodded toward Marcus. "Especially after yesterday's press conference about the task force files. We need a tactical team at the Lakewood address immediately," Wilson ordered an aide, who hurried from the room. "There's something else," Mercer added. "Derek's not alone in this. There are others, retired officers, some still active, who believe he's being railroaded. They're helping him because they're afraid of what comes next if the task force investigation expands." "Names!" Eleanor demanded. As Mercer began listing officers, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Reporter from Herald requesting urgent comment. Says she has information connecting you to a task force case from your PD days." Marcus felt a cold certainty settle in his stomach. The past was catching up, faster than he'd anticipated. "Excuse me," he said, stepping out to call Sophia. "What exactly does the reporter have?" he asked without preamble. "She says she's identified a case you handled as a public defender 5 years ago. A client named Andre Mitchell, arrested by the task force, who later committed suicide in prison. Says there are irregularities in the case that connect to our current investigation." Marcus closed his eyes, the name triggering painful memories. "Tell her I'll speak with her. My office, 1 hour." When he returned to the interview room, the tactical response was already being coordinated. Chief Wilson was on the phone, tension evident in his clipped instructions. "Team reports the house appears empty," Wilson announced after hanging up. "Signs of recent occupation, but no current presence. They're securing the scene now." "He knew we were coming," Marcus concluded. "Someone warned him." "Impossible," Wilson snapped. "This operation was compartmentalized." "With respect, Chief," Marcus countered, "we're dealing with officers who specialized in intelligence gathering and counter-surveillance. They know your protocols because they helped design them." Before Wilson could respond, an aide rushed in. "Sir, we've got a situation at Channel 6 Studios. Armed man matching Simmons's description spotted in the parking garage." "What's at Channel 6 today?" Eleanor asked. The realization hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Jamal Washington. He's doing an interview there in—" He checked his watch. 20 minutes. "Lock down the building," Wilson ordered. "All available units respond, but no sirens. Tactical approach only." As emergency responses mobilized, Marcus hurried to his office, where reporter Vanessa Chen was already waiting, her expression indicating she understood the gravity of what she'd uncovered. "Mr. Brooks," she began without preliminaries, "5 years ago, Andre Mitchell was arrested during a drug sweep by the Central Tactical Task Force. You were assigned as his public defender." "That's correct," Marcus confirmed, checking his phone for updates on the Channel 6 situation. Mitchell insisted evidence was planted, that he was beaten into confessing. The arresting officer was Derek Simmons. Marcus looked up sharply. "Where did you get that information?" "Those records were sealed under juvenile protection statutes." "I have sources," Vanessa replied. Mitchell hanged himself 3 months into his sentence after his appeal was denied. His mother kept all his letters, including ones detailing what really happened during his arrest. "Ms. Chen, I represented hundreds of clients as a public defender. Andre's case was tragic, but I don't see how it connects to the current situation." "Don't you?" Vanessa pushed a folder across the desk. "These are case notes from 3 other juvenile defendants arrested by the task force, all represented by different public defenders, all with nearly identical police reports, reports that follow the exact template we now know the task force used to justify questionable arrests." Marcus opened the folder, scanning documents that confirmed his worst fears. The task force's corruption hadn't just affected individuals, It had systematically targeted vulnerable communities, creating a pipeline of young black men into the criminal justice system. This isn't coincidence, Vanessa continued. It's pattern and practice. And it raises a question. How personal is this prosecution for you, Mr. Brooks? Is your pursuit of Officer Simmons motivated by justice for Jamal Washington or redemption for Andre Mitchell? Before Marcus could answer, his phone lit up with an urgent alert. Shots fired at Channel 6. Multiple officers responding. I have to go, he said, standing abruptly. Ms. Chen, I'll address your questions later, but right now, there's an emergency. As he rushed out, Vanessa called after him. The public deserves to know if this is justice or vendetta, Mr. Brooks. Her words followed him down the hallway, adding yet another layer of complexity to a case that had already expanded far beyond its original boundaries. What had begun as the prosecution of one officer for one assault was now unraveling years of systematic injustice and forcing Marcus to confront his own connection to that history. Marcus's car screeched into the Channel 6 parking lot, where police vehicles formed a perimeter around the building. Officers in tactical gear positioned themselves behind barricades, weapons trained on the main entrance. He spotted Sophia near the command vehicle and rushed over. What happened? He demanded. Simmons never made it inside, she explained. Security spotted him in the garage and called it in. When officers arrived, he fired twice and escaped through a service corridor. And Jamal? Secure. They locked down the studio when the first shots were reported. Relief washed over Marcus, quickly replaced by frustration. He was so close. How does he keep slipping away? Because he knows exactly how we operate, Chief Wilson interjected, joining them with a grim expression. The security footage confirms it was Simmons. He's becoming more brazen. Marcus's phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. He answered cautiously. You can't protect him forever, Brooks. Derek's voice, tense and ragged. This ends only one way. Derek! Marcus kept his tone measured, signaling frantically to the officers around him. You need to turn yourself in before someone gets hurt. A bitter laugh. Like you care about people getting hurt. You and your crusade, destroying good officers to make your name. This isn't about me, Marcus countered. This is about accountability. Accountability? Derek's voice rose. Where was your accountability for Andre Mitchell? You failed him too. The name struck Marcus like a physical blow. How do you know about Andre? I know everything about you, counselor. Your time as a public defender. How you lost case after case against our task force. How Mitchell killed himself after you couldn't save him. Derek's voice dripped with contempt. You're not pursuing justice. You're chasing redemption. The call ended abruptly. Marcus looked up to find Wilson and Sophia watching him. Did they trace it? He asked. Wilson shook his head. Burner phone. Signal bounced between multiple towers. He mentioned Andre Mitchell, Marcus said quietly. How would he know I represented him? The reporter, Sophia suggested. If she found the connection. No, Marcus interrupted. This is something else. He spoke like he's been watching me for a long time. Back at the DA's office, Marcus sat alone, staring at a 5-year-old case file he'd retrieved from storage. Andre Mitchell, 17, arrested for possession with intent to distribute. The police report, signed by Officer Derek Simmons, described finding drugs in Andre's backpack during a routine search near a known dealing location. Andre had insisted the drugs weren't his. Marcus had believed him, but without evidence of planting, the case had seemed unwinnable. He'd advised Andre to take a plea deal. 18 months instead of 5 years. 3 months into his sentence, Andre had fashioned a noose from bedsheets. A knock interrupted Marcus's thoughts. Sophia entered with coffee and concern. You've been staring at that file for an hour, she observed. I keep thinking about what I missed, Marcus admitted. The task force's methods, their templates for fabricating evidence. It's all here. I just didn't see it then. You couldn't have known. Couldn't I? Marcus's voice hardened. I knew something was wrong with these cases. The patterns were too convenient, the evidence too neat. But I was overwhelmed, handling 80 cases at once. I took the easy path. He closed the file. Andre paid the price for my expediency. And that's why you're doing this now, Sophia concluded. Jamal's case is your second chance. It started that way, Marcus acknowledged. But now, it's bigger than any one case. Derek seems to think this is personal. Maybe it is. Marcus stood, resolution firming his features. But that doesn't make it wrong. Across town, Captain Laura Reeves sat in her darkened living room, a glass of bourbon in one hand, her service weapon on the table before her. The day's events had left her shaken, caught between loyalties that once seemed perfectly aligned but now pulled her in opposite directions. Her phone lit up with a text. We know you're talking to Brooks. Last chance to make this right. No signature needed. The threat was clear enough. Laura picked up her weapon, checking it methodically, a habit formed over decades of service. She had built her career on navigating department politics, on knowing which corners could be cut and which lines never crossed. But somewhere along the way, the distinctions had blurred. Her doorbell rang, startling her. Through the peephole, she saw Chief Wilson waiting on her porch, alone. Chief, she greeted him cautiously after opening the door. I wasn't expecting you. This isn't an official visit, Laura. His expression was unreadable. May I come in? In her living room, Wilson declined a drink, sitting stiffly on the edge of her sofa. I received an interesting call today, he began. Former Chief Miller. He's concerned about the direction of the Simmons investigation, specifically about the sealed task force files. Laura's pulse quickened. Those files were opened by court order. Yes, for the purpose of locating Simmons, Wilson agreed, but Brooks is using them to construct a broader case against department practices. Practices that preceded my tenure, but occurred under Miller's watch. And under mine, Laura admitted. That's why you're here, isn't it? To find out how much I've told Brooks. Wilson leaned forward. Miller has friends on the police commission. Friends concerned about the department's reputation. They're prepared to close ranks, Laura. To contain this. Contain it how? By limiting the scope of the investigation. By ensuring certain historical contexts remain appropriately contextualized. Laura understood immediately. They want to bury it again. They want to protect the institution, Wilson corrected, and those who served it loyally. The implication hung between them. Protection for those who cooperated, consequences for those who didn't. And Simmons? She asked. A disturbed individual acting alone, Wilson replied smoothly. A tragic breakdown, unrelated to broader departmental policies. Laura thought of the threatening text on her phone, of the task force files detailing years of systematic abuses, of her own signature on reports she knew contained fabrications. I need to know where you stand, Laura, Wilson pressed, with the department that's given you everything, or with a prosecutor who'll discard you once he's done with the case. She met his gaze. I need time to think. Time is the one thing we don't have. Wilson stood. Brooks has scheduled a press conference for tomorrow morning. If he presents evidence from those files connecting Simmons to broader departmental policies, careers will end. Pensions will disappear. People we've both served with for decades will face criminal charges. After Wilson left, Laura poured another bourbon with trembling hands. The right choice had never seemed less clear. To protect her future or her conscience? To shield her colleagues or serve justice? Every path forward required betraying someone, including, potentially, herself. At the safe house where Jamal was now being kept, Marcus arrived to find him watching news coverage of the Channel 6 incident. "You could have been killed," Marcus said without preamble. "But I wasn't," Jamal countered. "And now everyone sees exactly who Simmons is." The young man's resilience surprised Marcus yet again. "The interview is obviously postponed. Security concerns." "I figured." Jamal muted the television. "They're saying he specifically targeted me. That true?" "Yes." "Because I'm the victim, or because I'm speaking out?" "Both," Marcus answered honestly. "You represent everything Derek fears: accountability, exposure, the end of a system that protected him." Jamal absorbed this. "That reporter, Chen, she called here looking for you. Said something about connecting today's events to past cases." Marcus tensed. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing, but it got me thinking." Jamal studied Marcus with newfound curiosity. "This isn't just a case for you, is it? There's something else driving you." The question deserved honesty. 5 years ago, I failed a client. A young man very much like you, arrested by Simmons and the task force. I didn't fight hard enough for him. And now you're fighting for me instead." "I'm fighting for what's right," Marcus insisted. "But yes, Andre's case haunts me. The evidence I didn't challenge. The plea deal I recommended." Jamal considered this. "Does that make what you're doing now less valid? Fighting harder because you didn't fight hard enough before?" The question cut to the heart of Marcus's dilemma. Whether justice pursued for complex personal reasons remained justice nonetheless. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know this. Derek Simmons and officers like him have operated without consequences for too long. That ends now, regardless of how we got here." Morning light filtered through the blinds as Marcus examined a document that had been hidden in a false bottom of a task force evidence box. A detailed operational plan titled Community Impact Initiative. The dry bureaucratic language couldn't disguise its true purpose: systematic targeting of predominantly black neighborhoods for aggressive enforcement. "My God," he whispered, scanning a map with color-coded zones. Red zones, labeled Priority Enforcement Areas, perfectly matched the city's historically black districts. "What is it?" Sophia asked, entering with yet another box of files. "Smoking gun." Marcus handed her the document. "Explicit instructions to concentrate enforcement in minority neighborhoods, complete with arrest quotas, broken down by precinct." Sophia studied the signatures at the bottom. Former Chief Miller, 3 deputy chiefs, and Captain Reeves. "This goes beyond racial profiling in individual cases," Marcus noted. "This is structural, institutionalized targeting, and the results are quantifiable." He pointed to an accompanying statistical report. Arrest rates in priority areas were 8 times higher than in comparable, low-priority zones, despite similar reported crime rates. "Who else has seen this?" "No one yet. I just found it." Marcus checked his watch. "The press conference is in 3 hours. This changes everything." His phone rang, a restricted number. Marcus answered cautiously. "Mr. Brooks." A male voice, unfamiliar. "I understand you're planning a press conference regarding the Simmons investigation." "Who is this?" "Someone concerned about the broader implications of your investigation. I believe we should meet. I don't take meetings with anonymous callers. Even if I can offer information about Derek Simmons's current location." Marcus paused. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. The Riverside Park gazebo. 1 hour. Come alone." The line went dead. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Trap?" she asked. "Possibly." Marcus gathered the key documents. "But with Simmons still targeting Jamal, we can't ignore any lead." "You're not actually going alone." "Of course not. Have the tactical team set up discreet surveillance. And get me everything we have on the Community Impact Initiative. I want to know exactly who authorized it and who knew about it." Across town, in a dingy motel room paid for with cash, Derek Simmons paced frantically, the walls closing in. The failed attempt at Channel 6 had shaken him. His face was now on every screen, his tactical advantages evaporating. They found the Lakewood house, Ray Donovan reported, entering with supplies. Mercer must have talked. Mercer's weak, Derek spat. Always was. Everyone's getting nervous, Derek. Kowalski's gone dark. Won't answer calls. What about our insurance policy? Donovan placed a USB drive on the table. All here. But using it means scorching earth. Everyone goes down, including people still on our side. Derek stared at the tiny device containing years of incriminating evidence. If Brooks has his way, we're finished anyway. The television caught his attention. Breaking news showing tactical teams surrounding Riverside Park. Sources indicate authorities may have located fugitive officer Derek Simmons, the reporter announced. Police have established a perimeter around Riverside Park following a credible tip. How did they... Derek turned to Donovan, suspicion dawning. Did you make a call? Set up a meeting. No! Donovan backed away, hands raised. I swear, Derek, I didn't tell anyone. Derek drew his weapon, paranoia consuming reason. Someone talked. Someone always talks. Put the gun down, Donovan urged. Think this through. I am thinking, Derek shouted. I'm thinking everyone I trusted has betrayed me. First Reeves, then Mercer, now you. You're not thinking straight, Donovan said carefully. The stress, the lack of sleep. Shut up. Derek's hand trembled. Brooks is dismantling everything we built, everything we protected, and you're all just letting it happen. The standoff was interrupted by Donovan's phone ringing. He answered cautiously, eyes never leaving Derek's weapon. It's starting, he reported after hanging up. One of Miller's people says Brooks found the community impact documents. He's going public this morning. Derek lowered his gun slightly. The operation plans? The targeting protocols? Donovan nodded grimly. Everything. A strange calm settled over Derek. Then, it's time. Time for what? My statement. Derek tucked the gun into his waistband and grabbed his jacket. I need a computer and transportation. Derek, you can't go out there. Every cop in the city is looking for you. Not where I'm going. Derek's eyes reflected a dangerous resolve. Not yet. At Riverside Park, Marcus approached the gazebo cautiously. Tactical teams were hidden among trees and joggers, the area secured without obvious police presence. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit waited alone, his bearing suggesting military or law enforcement background. Mr. Brooks, the man greeted him. Thank you for coming. You have information about Simmons? Potentially. First, I'd like to discuss your press conference. Marcus maintained a neutral expression. Who are you? Robert Carson. I represent certain interests concerned about the direction of your investigation. Concerned enough to obstruct justice? Carson smiled thinly. On the contrary, we want justice served appropriately. Officer Simmons clearly broke the law and should face consequences. But expanding the investigation to encompass historical departmental policies serves no productive purpose. It undermines public confidence in law enforcement at a critical time. The political maneuvering was becoming clear. You're afraid of what I found in the task force files. I'm concerned about the collateral damage from a well-intentioned but overzealous prosecution. Carson produced an envelope. These are Simmons's movements over the past 12 hours, tracked through a confidential source. His current location is included. Marcus didn't reach for the envelope. In exchange for? Perspective. Focus your press conference on Simmons's individual actions. Leave broader policy questions for appropriate administrative review channels. You want me to bury evidence of systematic racial targeting. I want you to consider the greater good. Carson placed the envelope on the bench between them. Finding Simmons is your stated priority. Here's your opportunity. Why would I trust this information? Because despite our differences, neither of us wants more violence. Simmons is deteriorating mentally. He's planning something dramatic. Marcus studied Carson's expression, weighing sincerity against manipulation. Who's backing you, Carson? Former Chief Miller? The slight flicker in Carson's eyes confirmed Marcus's suspicion. The Community Impact Initiative was Miller's brainchild, Marcus continued. The criminalization of entire neighborhoods to manufacture success statistics during his tenure. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Protecting his legacy, his pension, his reputation. You're making powerful enemies, Mr. Brooks. I've been making those my entire career. Marcus stood. Tell Miller and whoever else sent you that the truth comes out today. All of it. Then you're not interested in Simmons's location? Oh, I'm interested. Marcus took the envelope. But you should know, this meeting is being recorded as part of an ongoing criminal investigation. If this information is fabricated or leads to an ambush, obstruction charges will be the least of your concerns. Carson's composure wavered slightly. The information is genuine. We'll see. Marcus turned to leave, then paused. One question. How did Miller know I found the community impact documents? Carson remained silent. Someone in my office is feeding him information, Marcus concluded. Or someone in the DA's office. That's a separate investigation I'll be opening this afternoon. As Marcus walked away, his phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. His blood chilled as he read it. You want me, counselor? Come and get me. Town hall meeting, 7 p.m. Let's talk about justice. Attached was a photo of a community center poster advertising that evening's emergency town hall discussion on police-community relations. Among the listed speakers, Marcus Brooks and Jamal Washington. Derek Simmons had just announced his final move. The Emergency Command Center buzzed with tense activity as Chief Wilson surveyed the tactical map of the community center and surrounding areas. I want snipers on these 3 rooftops, he instructed, pointing to elevated positions. Plainclothes officers throughout the crowd. Every entrance and exit covered. District Attorney Eleanor Grant shook her head. We should cancel the town hall entirely. It's too dangerous. Canceling plays into Simmons's hands, Marcus argued. He wants to disrupt the community dialogue, to show he still has power. And you're willing to risk civilian lives to prove a point? Eleanor challenged. No, Marcus countered. I'm suggesting we use this opportunity to end this situation before someone else gets hurt. Captain Laura Reeves, who had arrived 20 minutes earlier, stepped forward. He's right. Simmons is escalating. He's planning something dramatic, whether this meeting happens or not. Eleanor turned to her, suspicious. And how exactly do you know his state of mind, Captain? Because I trained him, Laura replied evenly. I know how he thinks, how he operates under pressure. Marcus studied Laura carefully. After Wilson's visit to her home, he'd been uncertain where her loyalties truly lay. Her presence here suggested a decision had been made. If we proceed, Wilson said, redirecting the conversation, we need absolute control of the environment. Limited attendance, full security screening, no exceptions. We also need to consider Simmons's likely approach, Marcus added. He knows standard protocols because he helped write them. We need to be unpredictable. Laura nodded. He'll anticipate the obvious security measures, perimeter checks, metal detectors, ID verification. But he's resourceful. If he wants in badly enough, he'll find a way. What are you suggesting? Wilson asked. Let him in, Laura said simply. The room fell silent. Controlled access, she clarified. We identify his most probable infiltration methods and monitor them specifically. Rather than trying to block every possible entry, we channel him toward options we're watching most closely. That's extremely high risk, Eleanor objected. So is allowing him to choose the time and place of his next move, Laura countered. At least this way, we set the parameters. Marcus's phone chirped with a message from Sophia. Jamal insists on participating. Says he won't hide. Another complication. Marcus texted back. Tell him we're discussing security options. We'll call soon. Wilson was already coordinating with tactical commanders, Laura's strategy gaining traction despite Eleanor's objections. The chief's priorities had shifted from controlling the narrative to ending a situation that grew more dangerous by the hour. There's another factor to consider, Marcus added. Based on the community impact documents, we have reason to believe Simmons has been receiving assistance from other officers, current and former, who fear exposure if the investigation expands. You're suggesting police complicity? Eleanor's tone sharpened. I'm suggesting we can't assume everyone with a badge is on the same side, Marcus clarified. Not with what's at stake. Laura's expression betrayed nothing, but her slight nod confirmed Marcus's suspicion. The battle lines within the department were already drawn. Security teams will be limited to officers I personally clear, Wilson decided. No one else gets operational details. As the planning continued, Marcus stepped out to call Jamal, finding a quiet corner away from the strategic discussions. I know what you're going to say, Jamal began before Marcus could speak. That it's too dangerous, that I should stay hidden. It is dangerous, Marcus confirmed. Simmons has essentially announced his intention to target the town hall. All the more reason I need to be there, Jamal insisted. This started with me. I'm not letting fear keep me from seeing it through. Marcus recognized the resolve in Jamal's voice, the same determination that had sustained him through the trial, the shooting, and its aftermath. If you participate, Marcus said carefully, it will be under the strictest security protocols. You'll be wearing a vest. You'll have officers with you constantly. I understand. No improvising, Jamal. No heroics. Simmons isn't rational anymore. He's dangerous in ways that go beyond what happened during your arrest. I know what he is, Jamal replied, his voice hardening. I've always known. After ending the call, Marcus returned to find the command center reconfigured. Large monitors displayed the community center's layout, with security positions marked and zones of responsibility assigned. We've established a communication protocol, Wilson explained. Dedicated channel, code words for different scenarios. If Simmons appears, we move immediately to contain and neutralize the threat. Without endangering civilians, Eleanor emphasized. Of course, Wilson agreed, though his expression suggested he understood the potential complications of such a promise. Laura approached Marcus privately. There's something else you should know. The USB drive Simmons mentioned, his insurance policy. It's real. I've seen parts of its contents. What exactly does it contain? Records of every operation the task force conducted outside proper protocols. Audio recordings of planning meetings where explicit instructions were given to target specific neighborhoods and demographics. Financial records showing how seizure assets were distributed. Names? Everyone, Laura confirmed. From patrol officers up to the former chief. Dates? Locations? Specific incidents? Enough to reopen dozens of cases and end multiple careers. Marcus absorbed the implications. And if something happens to Simmons? The information is set for automatic release, Laura revealed. That's why certain people are working so hard to find him first. It's not about bringing him to justice. It's about containing the damage. Including you? Laura met his gaze directly. I've made my choice, counselor. I'm here, aren't I? Across town, Derek Simmons studied architectural plans of the community center spread across a motel room table. Ray Donovan watched nervously as Derek marked entry points, security positions, and blind spots. This is suicide, Donovan warned. They'll have the place locked down tight. They'll try, Derek agreed, but they'll follow standard procedures. Predictable. Buy the book. Even if you get inside, what's your plan? You can't expect to walk out again. Derek looked up, his eyes reflecting a disturbing calm. Who said anything about walking out? Donovan paled. Derek, this isn't you. This is stress and exhaustion talking. This is exactly me, Derek contradicted. The real me. The one who understands what's at stake. He pointed to the town hall announcement. Brooks is dismantling more than my career or the task force. He's attacking the entire system that keeps order. That separates the good people from the predators. So, your solution is what? Martyrdom? You think that solves anything? It sends a message, Derek replied, that there are consequences for betraying those who protect you, for siding with criminals against cops. Donovan studied his former colleague with growing apprehension. The composed, methodical officer had been replaced by someone unrecognizable, a man whose grievances had calcified into dangerous conviction. I'm not helping you commit suicide by cop, Donovan stated, backing toward the door. Derek's hand moved to his weapon. I'm not asking for your help anymore, Ray. Just your silence for a few more hours. Donovan raised his hands slowly. Think about what you're doing, Derek. This isn't justice. It's vengeance, and it won't change anything. You're wrong, Derek replied with frightening certainty. After tonight, everything changes. As evening approached, final security preparations transformed the community center into a fortress. Attendees passed through multiple checkpoints, identities verified against approved lists. Plainclothes officers mingled with the crowd, communications equipment disguised but active. On stage, Marcus conferred with panel participants, community leaders, police reform advocates, and Jamal, wearing a bulletproof vest beneath his suit jacket. Security personnel surrounded them, vigilant and focused. Laura Reeves, now serving as liaison between law enforcement agencies, approached Marcus with an update. No sign of Simmons yet, she reported. But Wilson's team intercepted Donovan an hour ago. He claims Simmons is determined to make a statement tonight, called it his final testimony. Marcus nodded grimly. He'll come. This is too perfect a stage for him to resist. The symbolic power of the moment wasn't lost on either of them. The convergence of all parties in this drama gathered to discuss the very issues at its heart. For Derek, it represented everything he opposed: accountability, community oversight, the questioning of police authority. We're ready, Laura assured him, though uncertainty lingered in her expression. As the lights dimmed and attendees took their seats, Marcus scanned the crowd one final time. Somewhere in the sea of faces, or perhaps still lurking outside, Derek Simmons was preparing to make his move. The hunter and the hunted, roles no longer clearly defined. The town hall was about to begin, and with it, the final act of a confrontation that had evolved far beyond one case, one officer, or one incident. What started in a courtroom would end here, one way or another. In the community center's backstage area, Marcus reviewed his notes one final time, the weight of the moment settling over him. Through the curtain, he could hear the growing murmur of the audience. Community members, journalists, activists, and police representatives gathering for what had become the city's most anticipated public forum. 5 minutes, a coordinator informed him. Jamal approached, adjusting the tie that felt foreign against his throat. The bulletproof vest beneath his shirt made his movements slightly stiff. How are you holding up? Marcus asked. Nervous, Jamal admitted, but not about Simmons. He gestured toward the audience. About them. What if I can't find the right words? Just speak your truth, Marcus advised. That's all anyone can ask. Jamal nodded, then lowered his voice. The officer's watching me. They keep switching positions, communicating through earpieces. Is that normal? They're being cautious, Marcus replied, though the observation triggered his own vigilance. Nothing about this situation was normal. Across the room, Captain Laura Reeves spoke quietly into her radio, coordinating with security teams positioned throughout the building. Her gaze continually swept the backstage area, assessing risks, identifying vulnerabilities. All entry points secure, she reported to Chief Wilson, who monitored operations from a command post in the building's administrative office. Attendees have been screened and seated. Any sign of our target? Wilson's voice crackled through the earpiece. Negative, but that doesn't mean he's not here. Laura studied the backstage crew. Technicians, volunteers, facility staff. Any one of them could be Simmons in disguise. Maintain elevated alert status. Meanwhile, in the third row of the auditorium, Derek Simmons sat perfectly still. His appearance transformed. The beard was fake, as were the glasses and the slight padding that altered his silhouette. The press credential hanging around his neck had been meticulously forged, the name and publication legitimate enough to pass initial scrutiny. His heart maintained a steady rhythm, years of tactical training controlling his physiological response to stress. Inside his jacket, the weight of the handgun pressed against his ribs, a familiar, comforting presence. He'd surrendered his police-issued weapon to access the building, knowing it would be flagged in the security system. The backup gun, however, had passed through a blind spot in the screening area, one he had anticipated from studying the building plans. Derek observed the security personnel positioned around the room, noting their formations, their sight lines, their patterns of movement. He recognized Wilson's protocols, standard defensive positions augmented by plainclothes officers in the crowd. Predictable. Manageable. His gaze fixed on the empty chair at the center of the stage. Marcus Brooks would occupy that seat soon. Beside it, another chair waited for Jamal Washington. The symmetry pleased Derek, both targets perfectly positioned. As the house lights dimmed slightly, Derek felt a strange calm descend. After days of chaos and fear, the clarity of purpose felt almost euphoric. One decisive action to rebalance the scales. One statement that couldn't be ignored or reinterpreted. Backstage, Sophia arrived with last-minute intelligence, pulling Marcus aside. Donovan gave up more details, she whispered urgently. Simmons mentioned disguises, specifically press credentials. Security's checking all media personnel again, but discreetly. It might be too late, Marcus noted, glancing at his watch. If he's already inside— There's more, Sophia interrupted. The USB drive with incriminating evidence? Donovan says Simmons set it to automatically upload to multiple news outlets at 9 p.m. if he doesn't enter a cancellation code. Marcus checked the time, 7:05 p.m. Less than 2 hours before potentially explosive documentation became public. Does Wilson know? Yes, and he's getting pressure from above. Former Chief Miller is apparently in direct contact with the mayor. Political damage control, Marcus concluded grimly. They're more worried about exposure than public safety. Not Wilson, Sophia clarified. He's prioritizing securing the town hall. But others in the chain of command are pushing to locate the drive first, apprehend Simmons second. This complicated an already volatile situation. Competing objectives among law enforcement could create dangerous gaps in security protocols. Stay close to Jamal, Marcus instructed. I don't trust anyone else right now. On stage, the moderator approached the microphone. The town hall was beginning. In the administrative office, Chief Wilson received an urgent update from a technical specialist. Sir, we've detected an unauthorized transmission from inside the building. Someone accessed our secure Wi-Fi network using police credentials. Wilson straightened. Location? Main auditorium, but we can't pinpoint exactly. The signal's bouncing between devices. He's here, Wilson realized, immediately activating his radio. All units, Target 1 is confirmed in the building. Maintain positions, but elevate alert status. No movement without my direct order. Wilson studied the security feed showing the auditorium. Hundreds of faces, any one of which could be Simmons in disguise. Moving too quickly could trigger a confrontation in a crowded space. Exactly the chaos Simmons might be counting on. "Sir," the technician called, "the transmission included an image upload to a secure server. We've intercepted it." The monitor displayed what appeared to be a sniper's view of the stage, crosshairs positioned over the center chair, Marcus's designated seat. "Is this live?" Wilson demanded. "No, sir. It's a still image, staged to look like a weapon sight picture." Psychological warfare, Wilson realized. He's playing with us. As the moderator welcomed attendees and explained the evening's format, Derek observed the security personnel's subtle reactions, heightened alertness, increased radio communication. They knew something. Perhaps his digital breadcrumb had been discovered. No matter. The primary plan remained unchanged. The psychological misdirection was merely a bonus, keeping them looking for snipers while the real threat sat among them. Derek's gaze shifted to the side entrance, where Marcus Brooks now waited to be introduced. Even from a distance, Derek could see the prosecutor's careful attention to his surroundings, the vigilance of a man who knew he was a target. On stage, the moderator's voice rose with practiced enthusiasm. "Joining us tonight to discuss these critical issues of police accountability and community relations, please welcome District Attorney's Office Special Prosecutor Marcus Brooks and community member Jamal Washington." Applause filled the room as Marcus and Jamal took their seats. Derek's hand moved slightly toward his jacket, then stopped. Not yet. Timing was everything. Laura Reeves, positioned stage right, scanned the audience methodically. The applause provided cover for her radio transmission. "All security elements maintain visual sweep during audience reactions. Watch for anomalous behavior or positioning." Marcus adjusted his microphone, acutely aware of his exposure on the brightly lit stage. He could barely make out individual faces beyond the first few rows, but he knew Derek was out there, watching, waiting, calculating. "Thank you for coming tonight," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the tension coiling within him. "What happened in our courthouse last week has forced our community to confront difficult questions about policing, accountability, and justice." As Marcus spoke, Jamal surveyed the audience, his perspective different from the security personnel's. He wasn't looking for tactical positions or security threats. He was reading faces, sensing the emotional current in the room. One face in the third row caught his attention. A bearded man whose expression lacked the engagement or curiosity of those around him. Instead, his focus had an unnatural intensity, a stillness amidst the shifting crowd. Jamal's pulse quickened. Without looking directly at the man again, he shifted his chair slightly, positioning himself more directly between Marcus and the third row. From his command post, Wilson noticed the subtle movement. "What's Washington doing?" "Unknown," came the response from an officer near the stage. "Possibly repositioning for better sightline to the audience. Or positioning himself as a shield," Wilson realized with sudden clarity. "He's spotted something. Third row, center section. Direct all available cameras there, now." The security feed zoomed in on the section in question, revealing several audience members, including a bearded man with glasses who sat unnaturally still amid the responsive crowd. Wilson's breath caught. Despite the disguise, something in the man's posture and stillness triggered recognition. "Possible Target 1 identification," he transmitted. Third row, center section, bearded male in gray jacket. "Approach with extreme caution. Maintain distance until confirmed." On stage, Marcus continued his remarks, hyper-aware of Jamal's slight repositioning and the almost imperceptible increase in security movement at the room's perimeter. Something was happening. Someone had been identified. The documents we've uncovered reveal systematic policies designed to target specific communities, Marcus stated, his words calculated to draw reaction from Derek if he was indeed present. Policies that corrupted good officers and protected those who abused their authority. In the third row, Derek felt the net tightening. The security personnel were too deliberate in their casual movements around the room's perimeter. They knew, or suspected. His window was closing. Time to accelerate the plan. Before we continue, Marcus said, his voice measured as he gestured toward the presentation screen behind him, I want to share evidence that puts Officer Simmons's actions in their proper context. The screen displayed the first page of the Community Impact Initiative, the task force's systematic targeting policy. Murmurs rippled through the audience as attendees processed the implications. This document reveals an intentional strategy to concentrate enforcement in predominantly black neighborhoods, Marcus explained, not based on crime rates or public safety needs, but on demographic profiles. In the third row, Derek felt his carefully maintained composure fracturing. Brooks was exposing everything, not just his individual actions, but the entire framework that had justified them. The system that had told him he was right. These weren't rogue officers acting independently, Marcus continued, advancing to a statistical slide. This was policy, designed and implemented by department leadership, that resulted in dramatically disproportionate arrest rates in minority communities. Derek's hand moved slowly toward his jacket. 3 plainclothes officers were gradually converging on his position, trying to appear casual while closing the distance. They'd identified him despite the disguise. His timetable was collapsing. At the command post, Wilson monitored the approach. Units in position. Prepare for extraction on my mark. Minimal force, no weapons unless absolutely necessary. Laura's voice came through his earpiece. Sir, we can't guarantee a clean takedown with this many civilians in proximity. Recommend clearing the room first. Negative, Wilson decided. Evacuation could trigger him. Maintain current approach. On stage, Jamal leaned toward his microphone. I'd like to speak to what this meant for our community. All eyes turned to him, including Derek's, whose focus narrowed with predatory intensity. When I was pulled over that night, Jamal began, I wasn't surprised by the stop itself. We all know the reality. Driving while black means you get stopped. What surprised me was how quickly Officer Simmons escalated the situation. Derek's breathing quickened, memories of that night flooding back. The adrenaline, the practiced moves, the absolute certainty of threat, where none existed. I did everything right, Jamal continued, his voice strengthening. Hands visible, polite responses, no sudden movements. None of it mattered because the outcome was predetermined. I wasn't being arrested for what I did. I was being arrested for who I was. Derek's hand now rested on his concealed weapon. The nearest security officer was 15 feet away, moving with deliberate casualness through the row behind him. Marcus noticed the subtle security movements and recognized the situation was deteriorating rapidly. His mind raced through scenarios, contingencies, methods to de-escalate without triggering catastrophe. The tragedy here, Marcus added, deliberately drawing attention back to himself, is that systems like this don't just harm communities, they corrupt officers. They take people who enter the profession to serve and protect, and teach them to fear and control instead. As he spoke, Marcus scanned the audience more deliberately, his eyes finally settling on a bearded man in the third row, a man whose stillness amid the reactive crowd stood out like a predator among prey. Their eyes met across the distance. Recognition flashed between them. Derek. In that moment of connection, Marcus made a split-second decision that would either end the crisis or accelerate it catastrophically. In fact, Marcus continued without breaking eye contact with Derek, this systematic approach to policing transformed officers who might otherwise have served honorably. Officers like Derek Simmons, who I believe is with us tonight. A collective gasp swept through the room. Security personnel froze momentarily, their careful approach compromised. "Officer Simmons," Marcus addressed him directly. "I see you." The auditorium fell silent, tension crackling through the air. In the command post, Wilson cursed under his breath, then quickly redirected his team. "All units, cover blown. Move to immediate containment. Security team, prepare for audience evacuation." Derek's mind raced through rapidly diminishing options. His element of surprise was gone. The security personnel were closing in. His carefully constructed plan was unraveling. But Marcus wasn't finished. "I want to speak directly to you, Derek, because beneath the anger and fear driving your actions, I believe there's still an officer who once cared about justice." "Don't patronize me, Brooks," Derek called out, standing abruptly. The audience members nearest him recoiled in shock, creating a small clearing around him. "You have no idea what justice looks like on the streets." Security officers paused their approach, hands near their weapons, but not drawing them, aware of the volatility of the situation and the civilians in their line of fire. "You're right," Marcus acknowledged, his voice level despite the pounding of his heart. "I've never worn a badge. I've never had to make split-second decisions with lives at stake." "Then what gives you the right to judge those who do?" Derek demanded, his hand still concealed inside his jacket. "I'm not judging all officers," Marcus clarified. "I'm holding accountable those who abuse their power, and those who create systems that encourage that abuse." Derek's laugh held no humor. "You think this is about accountability? This is about undermining authority, making it impossible for real police work to happen." "Real police work shouldn't require targeting people based on their race," Marcus countered. "It shouldn't result in citizens like Jamal being beaten for minor traffic violations." Derek's gaze shifted to Jamal, his expression hardening. He resisted. "No, Derek," Jamal spoke up, his voice steady despite the danger. "I complied with every instruction. You decided I was a threat before you ever saw my face." Something in Jamal's calm certainty seemed to further unbalance Derek. His hand emerged from his jacket, the gun now visible, though still pointed downward. Several audience members screamed. Security officers drew their weapons, creating a standoff with civilians caught in the middle. "Everyone stay calm," Marcus called out, raising his hands. "Derek, this doesn't need to end in more violence." "It was always going to end this way," Derek replied, his voice eerily calm as he began raising the weapon. "Once you decided to destroy everything we built." "We?" Marcus questioned. "Or do you mean Chief Miller? Captain Reeves? The commanders who designed a discriminatory system, then left officers like you to implement it?" Derek hesitated, the gun's trajectory pausing. "We were doing what was necessary." "You were doing what you were told," Marcus corrected, "following a playbook written by people who will now disavow any knowledge of your actions, people who are actively trying to contain this scandal to protect themselves." From her position near the stage, Laura Reeves watched the exchange with growing dread. The confrontation was exposing truths she had helped bury for years, truths that implicated her as much as Derek. "You think I don't know that?" Derek's voice cracked slightly. "Why do you think I kept insurance? Evidence against all of them?" "And has it protected you?" Marcus asked. "Or are you standing alone now, while they negotiate their own futures?" The question landed with visible impact. Derek's expression flickered between rage and a momentary, devastating clarity. "The system you're defending already abandoned you, Derek," Marcus continued, "and it will sacrifice anyone necessary to preserve itself." For a critical moment, doubt crossed Derek's face. The gun wavered slightly, Then a voice from the back of the room shattered the tenuous connection. "Simmons! Drop the weapon now!" Derek's training kicked in automatically. He spun toward the new threat, weapon raising. In that moment of divided attention, 3 security officers rushed him simultaneously from different angles. The collision was violent and chaotic. Derek managed to fire once before being tackled, the shot going wide and embedding in the ceiling. Audience members screamed, dropping to the floor or rushing toward exits. "Weapon secured!" an officer shouted as Derek was pinned beneath multiple bodies, the gun wrenched from his grip. Marcus rushed from the stage toward the struggling mass of bodies, Jamal close behind despite security personnel trying to hold them back. "Derek Simmons," the lead officer recited, securing handcuffs around Derek's wrists. "You're under arrest for attempted murder, assault on an officer, escape from custody, and multiple additional charges." As they pulled Derek to his feet, his eyes locked with Marcus's. The rage had drained away, replaced by something more complex, a mixture of defeat and strange relief. "It wouldn't have changed anything, would it?" Derek asked quietly as officers began leading him away. "Even if I'd succeeded tonight?" "No," Marcus answered honestly. "The evidence is already public. The system that created this situation will still face accountability." Derek nodded slowly. "The USB drive?" "We know about the automatic upload," Marcus confirmed. 9 p.m. 9:17, Derek corrected. A final, small victory. "The exact time I was awarded my badge 15 years ago." As they led him toward the exit, Derek turned back one last time. "Brooks, the evidence on that drive, it goes higher than you think, all the way to the mayor's office." The implication hung in the air as Derek was escorted from the auditorium, leaving Marcus to contemplate the expanding ripples of a case that had begun with one assault, but would ultimately reveal corruption at every level of city governance. Around them, order was gradually being restored. Medical personnel attended to audience members affected by the chaos. Officers secured the scene. Journalists who had witnessed the confrontation were already broadcasting live reports. Jamal approached, his expression a mixture of relief and lingering adrenaline. "It's over?" "This part is," Marcus replied, watching as Derek disappeared through the exit doors. "But the larger fight for accountability is just beginning." Chief Wilson joined them, holstering his weapon. "You took one hell of a risk confronting him directly, Brooks." "I saw an opportunity to reach him," Marcus explained, "to remind him that he was a person, not just a symbol in someone else's narrative." "It worked," Wilson acknowledged grudgingly, "though I don't recommend making it standard procedure." As the adrenaline of the confrontation began to subside, Marcus became aware of the historical weight of what had just occurred. A corrupt system had been exposed. A dangerous fugitive had been apprehended. Justice, in its imperfect way, had been served. But the true measure of tonight's victory would be determined by what happened next, by whether the revelations led to genuine reform or merely another cycle of damage control and hollow promises. "What happens now?" Jamal asked, seeming to read his thoughts. "Now," Marcus replied, "we make sure the truth stays in the light." 3 weeks after Derek Simmons's arrest, Marcus stood before the courthouse steps where the journey had begun, addressing a crowd of journalists and community members. The summer sun beat down on the assembled group, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Today, the grand jury has returned indictments against 14 current and former police officers, 3 deputy chiefs, former Chief Miller, and 2 staff members from the mayor's office, Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the plaza. These indictments reflect evidence of systematic civil rights violations, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy that extended far beyond a single officer or incident. Cameras flashed as he continued. The evidence on Officer Simmons's encrypted drive, combined with the task force files, revealed a pattern of misconduct that was not only tolerated but institutionalized at the highest levels of city government. Behind Marcus stood District ITD Attorney Eleanor Grant, her expression a careful mixture of determination and political calculation. The case had evolved from a potential liability into a career-defining opportunity, a chance to position herself as a champion of reform before the next election. While we cannot discuss specific charges at this time, Marcus concluded, I want to acknowledge the courage of witnesses who came forward despite significant pressure to remain silent. Particularly Captain Laura Reeves, whose testimony was instrumental in mapping the full extent of the conspiracy. As questions erupted from the press corps, Marcus searched the crowd and found Jamal standing at the periphery with his mother, both watching with cautious optimism. Their eyes met briefly, a moment of mutual recognition, acknowledgement of how far they had come and how much remained to be done. Later that afternoon, Marcus visited the detention center where Derek Simmons awaited trial. The former officer had lost weight, his uniform replaced by standard-issue orange, his bearing diminished, but not entirely broken. "Didn't expect to see you here, counselor," Derek remarked as he took his seat in the visitation room. "I wanted to update you personally," Marcus replied. "The indictments came down today." "I heard," Derek nodded. "Quite the haul you've brought in. Your evidence made it possible." Marcus studied the man across from him. No longer the threat he had been, but still complex, still human beneath the actions that had defined him. "Why did you maintain that insurance policy all those years if you believed so strongly in what you were doing?" Derek's laugh held no humor. "Because I wasn't naive. I knew how the game worked. The higher-ups create the policies, but when things go wrong, the officers on the ground take the fall." A moment of self-awareness that surprised Marcus. "Your attorney mentioned you've been cooperative with the investigation. What's the point of holding back now?" Derek's shoulders slumped slightly. "The system I was protecting already sacrificed me, just like you said it would." "And Jamal Washington? Do you still believe he deserved what happened to him?" Derek was quiet for a long moment. "I believed what I was trained to believe," he finally said. "That certain neighborhoods, certain people were inherently dangerous. That perception shaped every interaction." "That's not an answer." "No," Derek admitted. "He didn't deserve it. Neither did others in similar situations." He looked up, something like regret crossing his features. "But acknowledging that now doesn't change what happened." "No," Marcus agreed. "It doesn't. But it might help prevent it from happening again." As Marcus rose to leave, Derek called after him. "Brooks, was there ever a moment when you thought I might succeed? At the town hall?" "There was," Marcus admitted. "But I also believed there was still an officer beneath all that rage and fear. Someone who ultimately couldn't follow through with mass violence, regardless of personal grievances." Derek absorbed this assessment silently, as the guard arrived to escort him back to his cell. Across town, in a small office at police headquarters, Captain Laura Reeves cleared her desk, placing personal items into a cardboard box. Her resignation had been accepted that morning, a negotiated departure that allowed her to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for consideration during her own inevitable legal proceedings. Chief Wilson appeared in her doorway. "The department will survive this, Laura." "It should," she replied simply, "but not unchanged." "No," he agreed. "Not unchanged." They shared a moment of understanding. Two career officers witnessing the dismantling of a system they had helped build and maintain, each reconciling their own complicity in different ways. "For what it's worth," Wilson said as he turned to leave, "your testimony was the right thing. Long overdue, but still right." Laura nodded, acknowledging the complex truth in his assessment. Her cooperation hadn't erased her years of silence, but it had finally aligned her actions with the oath she'd taken decades earlier. That evening, Marcus met Jamal at a small coffee shop away from media attention. The young man looked different, still carrying the weight of his experience but with renewed purpose in his bearing. "The community support group is taking off," Jamal reported, referring to the organization he had founded for victims of police misconduct. "We're helping people navigate the complaint process, connecting them with legal resources." "That's important work," Marcus acknowledged, "especially now that the department's Internal Affairs Division is being restructured." "It's a start," Jamal agreed, though his expression remained guarded. "But policies without accountability are just words on paper. Which is why civilian oversight is part of the consent decree," Marcus reminded him. "Your voice will be part of ensuring these changes stick." Jamal stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "Sometimes I think about Simmons. Not the man who attacked me or who pulled the gun in court, but whoever he was before the system warped him. That's remarkably compassionate, considering what he put you through." "It's not compassion exactly," Jamal clarified. "It's understanding the bigger picture. Simmons was both victim and perpetrator of a toxic culture. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it helps explain it. And understanding is the first step toward prevention," Marcus concluded. "Exactly." Jamal leaned forward, his expression earnest. "That's why I've decided to go to law school." Marcus raised an eyebrow, surprised but impressed. "Really?" "Yeah," Jamal confirmed with a small smile. "This experience showed me how powerful legal advocacy can be, how one case can create ripples that change entire systems." "It's not an easy path," Marcus cautioned. "The law moves slowly, and change even slower." "I'm not looking for easy," Jamal replied with quiet determination. "I'm looking for meaningful." As they continued their conversation, Marcus reflected on how this case had transformed everyone it touched. Derek Simmons, once the embodiment of unchecked authority, now cooperated with investigators dismantling the very system he had defended. Laura Reeves had finally chosen accountability over loyalty to a corrupt institution. And Jamal had channeled trauma into purpose, emerging not just as a survivor, but as an advocate for systemic change. For Marcus himself, the case had provided a measure of redemption for past compromises. Andre Mitchell's case could never be undone, but the exposure of the task force's misconduct might prevent similar injustices in the future. "I've been thinking about something Simmons said," Marcus shared as their meeting concluded, "about how acknowledging a wrong doesn't change what happened. He's right, but it's also incomplete." "How so?" Jamal asked. "Acknowledgement is just the beginning. It's what happens next that determines whether justice is served. And what happens next is up to us," Jamal concluded. Marcus nodded, recognizing the truth in the young man's words. The case against Derek Simmons had ended, but the work of reform had only begun. The line between justice and power remained as thin and fragile as ever, maintained not by institutions or policies alone, but by the vigilance of those who refused to accept a system built on inequality and fear. As they parted ways, the setting sun cast long shadows across the city streets. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: implementing the consent decree, monitoring police practices, supporting communities still healing from years of targeted enforcement. But tonight, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that one officer who had crossed the line of justice had been held accountable, and in doing so had exposed the broader failures that enabled his actions. It wasn't a perfect ending. Justice rarely provided those. But it was a beginning, a chance to redraw the line between power and accountability, between enforcement and protection. And for now, that possibility of transformation was enough. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.